Hello and welcome to the CSPC 2025 interview series. My name is Stéphanie Tremblay. I'm a postdoctoral researcher at McGill University and also a CSPC volunteer. And today I am joined by Dr. Paul Bert, who's the president of the Canadian Institutes of Health Research. The CSPC is very thankful for CIHR's support and for your support as an active member of the CSPC community. So welcome, Dr. Bert.
Merci beaucoup. Thank you very much for having me.
So let's start with the first question. So you've just taken on a leadership role, like the leadership of CIHR at a time when Canada's health research ecosystem is evolving rapidly, and that's from AI to precision medicine and also to social and environmental health. What's your vision for CIHR's role in shaping the future of health research in Canada?
The first thing I would say is it's not only rapidly evolving, but I think the Government of Canada is recognizing the fact that we have to build up a knowledge economy. We have to become more productive as a nation, and that's a huge priority. As part of that, our government, both in budget 2024 and 25, have put in substantial investments in for life sciences and all of the sciences, in the three councils. So clearly, discovery is valued. You are quite correct. The world is changing rapidly, especially down south with all of the changes that are happening there. In particular, with the changes to CDC and to NIH and to other aspects of science policy and politics, we are seeing a huge ability to basically rethink how we do things here in Canada. That for sure, all of that is shaping, I think, the future direction of our agency. So if you were to ask me a year ago what we should do, and today, there have been changes. First, we have a new government, and we have, because of the situation in the US, a real need to invest in our future as a country, to think of what we need from a sovereign nation's perspective because of some of the existential threats, if you will. I think what is most important for Canada is to think collaboratively. So at CIHR, the mantra we're using is collaboration for impact. We can't outspend the Americans, we can out-collaborate them. So as an agency, as a country, we have to break down the barriers that get in the way of us working as one economy. And that's very true in science. So as an agency, we are working very, very hard to ensure that we put all the mechanisms and incentives for our scientists to better work together. That means we need to work well with our provinces. It means we need to work well with other aspects of civil society, if we're talking healthcare, with the health systems and everything that goes with it. I also believe, in addition to all of that, that we are in a unique point in time. Life, just generally speaking, science is rapidly evolving. In the life sciences in particular, if you were to think back at the Human Genome Project 25 years ago when CIHR was created, we had spent billions of dollars already, thousands of scientists' time, and in 13 years, we sequenced one genome. Today, we sequence a genome over a weekend for about $100 maybe, $200, depending where you do it. So we can do this very rapidly. And other countries in the world, for example, the UK, is sequencing 50,000 new genomes a month. And they're linking all that data with the clinical data. So they envision changing the way we do medicine, changing the way we treat patients. And that's what I believe in. So this unique moment in time is rapidly accelerating, and so is biological discovery. But not only can we do the genome thing, we can do the CRISPR-Cas9 thing. We can actually edit the map of life. And that's gonna, in the next decade, we're gonna be able to cure genetic diseases and do an awful lot more. Add to that now with AI, this particular revolution, biological revolution we're in, is on fire. Artificial intelligence will not only, ChatGPT will not only change the way you get information or think through things, it's gonna revolutionize the way we do medicine. It's revolutionizing, as we speak, the way we do science. We can compute the way proteins fold in real time. Never could we do that before. We can analyze complex patterns in imaging in ways we could never imagine before. And discoveries are just going to keep happening and happening and happening. And we as an agency want to support all of that. We want to support all that talent that goes with it. We want to support all that science that goes with it. But not only that, we want to make sure that that science and the other part of that pipeline to get us to prosperity, that we help support in an ecosystem the commercial aspects of what we do, so that our discoveries actually benefit Canadians in more than just improving their health.
Thank you so much for a very comprehensive answer. I think this cross-sectoral collaboration is a theme that's coming back a lot throughout the conference, and it's understandably why. So Dr. Aibel, you were instrumental in developing the strategy for patient-oriented research, or SPORE. How do you see the next phase of patient and community engagement, especially in ensuring that research truly reflects the needs and the values of diverse populations in Canada?
That is a critical question. So we as an agency put about $60 million a year into that program. I was instrumental in setting that up, there's no question. That's just one of our many assets. Well, actually, why don't I just step back a bit? CIHR has, we put about $1.4 billion into the research ecosystem every year. Our mandate in doing that is to improve the health, well-being, and prosperity of Canadians through research. 2/3 of the money goes for discovery alone. 1/3 is strategic. The SPORE funding in the $400 million represents $600 million of that money. And what we have to do with that money is to make sure all the pieces work well together. So in the SPORE program, the way it's set out now, we have the patient engagement section of that's working exceptionally well. What we now have to do is make sure all the other pieces go with it. In fact, clinical trials are part of is part of a patient-oriented strategy. So is evidence reviewing. So is policy development and knowledge mobilization. So as an agency, we're structuring all these programs first to make sense. Secondly, we're working on with our scientific directors to put the themes in place to make use of all that. So for example, if I were to think of heart failure, if I were to think of, strokes or any of those big things that affect Canadians, those themes have to make use of all of these enablers we're putting in place. So the program was designed like that. Core to all of that was the voice of a patient. And in that program, it works really well. The voice of a patient is part of that engagement strategy. It's not just engagement, it's often co-production, co-design, and the way we're going to a future is actually community-led research. We're going to go several steps behind. The best example of that is with our Indigenous communities, where what we want to do is ensure that with them, they lead the design of the studies as a community. Beyond a patient, we will go one step further. Now, to make all this work, that voice needs to be loud and clear if we're talking patients. Sometimes we're actually talking about people, not patients. Keep that in mind. What's the P we're talking about? And as the research goes to more socially oriented, like social determinants of health problems, and that's a huge issue today, we want to increase the voice of the non-patient, the person. So we will investigate how best to do that. That's part of that community link. And I would say nothing can happen without strong co-development with decision makers. It's not just about the patient. You can't build major programs if the people who have the purse strings in their hands aren't there to hear that voice. So that co-design piece needs to have a strong centeredness around the person or the patient, but then around that you need to strengthen who they hear it from and who you bring to a table. So that programming really has to do that.
That makes a lot of sense, really including all those voices around the same table.
I think so.
I agree. Next question. So you've worked at the intersection of science, healthcare, and public policy for much of your career. How do you think CIHR can strengthen the connection between health research and decision making? You've touched already a little bit on that, but can you elaborate?
Well, yeah, I think that is such a critical question. As an agency, you know, everybody just thinks that all we do is fund. Not at all, actually. We get direction sometimes from ministers in terms of what they believe is important, or the government of Canada. The Prime Minister has 6 priorities. Well, I have to listen to those, right? Then the next question, how do we make those things come alive? What parts of those missions that the Prime Minister wants to follow, how can we help them? For example, we need to think through sovereignty in the Arctic. Well, we have a ton of programming, you know, with Indigenous communities and the Arctic more broadly that we can strengthen. We have a strong partnership with ITK, for example. So we can listen to those missions and strengthen them. That is a clear thing. The other thing we can do, that's the top-down approach. It's the bottom-up one. We can take an ecosystem, align it in different ways, listen to our scientists, and present that voice to our decision makers. And I call that approach more the agenda-setting one. We show them what problems that are important to our society, and then we, over time, takes work, bring them to that problem. So that particular approach, you know, there are policy windows, right? If the government tells you, here's where we're going, well, let's say, for example, they're not interested in, I don't know, it could be anything. I'm just going to pick a topic off the top of my head. Let's say climate is less of a problem today, for whatever reason, than women's health. Women's health the problem? Well, then what we need to do is be policy ready with women's health programming. So as an agency, what we try to do is to be policy ready and to agenda set where we can. But then to move into those spaces rapidly when they become windows of opportunity. Top down. And ideally, all of these things will intersect sometime in our future. And then, of course, there are things where it's obvious we have to fix as an ecosystem. I just came through a session on commercialization and then making sure we, you know, make our science productive. Well, that's an ecosystem problem. And it's evident to everyone. Mm-hmm. The challenge is who's leading and how we're going to get there.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So yeah, policy informing research and research informing policy. So it's a two-way relationship. Yeah, so just a last question. What's your opinion, Dr. Hébert, on the value of the CSPC and its position in the community as a connection hub, knowledge mobilizer, and talent incubator, so in this science and innovation policy landscape?
Well, CSPC is a wonderful convener and catalyst to bringing a lot of decision makers and government officials to a table with the private sector, other aspects of the public sector, academe, and civil society to hear wonderful conversations about how science can really make a big difference in the world. So from my perspective, this is really key. So these conversations that we have in these open sessions are really, really great. The other huge benefit is, even though I'm here in Ottawa, oftentimes I don't meet the Deputy Minister of X, who happens to be a colleague, or this or that. I mean, this afternoon I walked into and had a great chat with the head of NRC, ran into the head of CFI, and we have conversations. Although we chat on a regular basis, it's just a wonderful opportunity to network amongst decision makers and for decision makers to hear really important conversations. The other wonderful part is the incubation of great ideas. And for that, I really enjoy. And then it turns out there's a lot of young people here hearing these conversations, and that part I enjoy a lot too.
And like building those relationships.
Absolutely.
Right?
I've been approached by a number of young people. We've had some wonderful chats about different things. So the networking aspect of this particular conference is outstanding. There are very few conferences that bring such a diversity of people together in one physical space. And for that, it is really incredible.
Absolutely. So on this wonderful note, thank you so much for taking part in the interview series.
Thank you for having me, Stephanie.